Welcome everyone, I'm Miles, along here with Keith, and we're going to be doing a review of Fantasy Flight's games, Star Wars Legion, which was recently published in 2018. And while it's not traditionally a historical game, it's one we've played here at the club and enjoyed quite a bit. And as you see on the screen right now, there'll be 5 weighted categories we look at when we judge all of the rule sets, and we're going to do the same thing here with Legion.
So, presentation, I gave it a 7. I think it's good presentation. I mean, the rule book is kind of, it's not that great. It's got color pictures, but it's kind of it's a staple bound book. So the rules are not that great looking as far as presentation goes, but the box art, the cards that it comes with are all fully illustrated. Everything else that it comes with besides this physical rule book looks great. So I gave it a 7.
When I looked at presentation, it's different from what most historical rules are, where everything's in a book and it's table oriented. This is very card driven with information on the cards, supplemental cards to adjust the units. I think the graphics are superb.
They are.
The rules themselves are actually quite clearly written. There's like 6 pages of them for the basic game. There's another 4 or 5 pages for the edition one. So it's actually quite an easy game to get into. And it's once you understand how to reference the cards, it's actually a very easy game to understand what a unit can and can't do.
And I think that for me, it's like I'm a little bit back and forth in this because the cards do make it easy to reference for everything, but there's a ton of them.
There is a ton of them.
And the downside for me is, and I don't know if I can ding presentation for this because it's not necessarily presentation, but you have all your cards out on the table and it takes up a lot of clutter. Yeah. And we found if we put them on a separate table, that's not so bad.
And there's some other things, and I'll actually talk about that when we get to support, about different ways you can manage the cards to reduce the clutter and actually reduce the physical need for them also.
Ah, that's true.
So for my score for presentation, I gave it an 8.
Okay.
I think it's actually one of the much more professionally done games that we've come across.
It is very slick and polished. I only dinged it. I was going to give it an 8, but then I dinged it just for the rule book is not great.
So you're wrong. Our next category is playability, and this is one of the big ones, weighted at 30%. And this is a game where you have to realize that it's designed for tournament play. It's designed for head-to-head play, and so the whole game is constructed around a point system and cards. It's usually 800 points per player per game. It's very structured. You don't have to play it that way, but the rules and everything are intended for you to do that. I think that actually it makes it accessible for gamers who don't have a lot of historical gaming or any tabletop gaming experience but like the genre. But I think you have to be really focused that this is not a scenario-driven rule set by design.
And I think you need a lot of miniatures. You need at least 2 box sets. The amount of miniatures you put on the table and run, and painting all those stormtroopers, all that white armor is no fun. So you need a lot of miniatures, so it has that Games Workshop kind of model where you need a lot of stuff.
Oh, this is clearly along the lines of a company that controls an IP, controls access to it, and prices accordingly.
Right.
And if you like Star Wars, it's probably worth the price. If you're not a fan of Star Wars, and the margins that are associated with this business are probably pretty high.
Although playability, I think one of the aspects of it that it has good marks in is the sense that you're going to find opponents everywhere. So you will be able to play a game. Go into almost any store and you're going to have the miniatures and somebody to play. So there's that. So
the way I kind of think of this game and to kind of compare it to, it's the version of bolt action that I wish bolt action was. It has a lot of the interesting characteristics of bolt action without it's not nearly as gaming as bolt action. Even though bolt action is a much more traditional historical rule set. So for playability, I gave it a 9.
That's high. I didn't go that high. I gave it a 6 because of the sheer amount of miniatures you need to buy 2 box sets. Either you buy one and somebody else buys one, or you buy 2. That to me would be a big barrier.
So our next category is mechanics. It's the second other large category at 30%. This is a game that, from a kind of a mechanics viewpoint, I think flows very easily. The game we played in the video. 2 of the players had never played the game before.
I had only ever played once before.
And I think no one really had a rules advantage. I think the rules, mechanics flow really well, and the game plays fast.
It's easy to forget a lot of the special things that units can do.
Right.
So-
There is a bit of kind of rock, paper, scissors with understanding the different unit cards. Now, in our game, we didn't have a lot of the special capabilities out. But if you're a competitive player, the understanding that interplay
Yeah.
is really the heart of the game.
Right.
But I think we still had a very cinematic kind of gaming experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And really didn't bog down any rules issues, except for once to figure out how units with high levels of suppression behave, and that was me cheating because I didn't want to lose.
Well, and it was an important moment,
Yeah.
so I think it's an I go you go game in the sense
Yeah.
that one unit activates and then another, or one side and then the other side. So it's a back and forth.
And you don't have complete control because you
Right.
pick your unit jet, you look at it. You have some ability to pick certain units and nominate that you may be kind of substitute, but you don't have complete control over your units, and I like that.
Well, and then you start the turn with the cards that you can pick.
Yeah, the command cards.
The command cards that you can pick to have some influence over whether you get initiative or not.
Right.
How much do you want initiative the next turn? And each of those has special aspects to them that allow you to do special things, which that almost is a game in a game.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the more important aspects of the game because you have to really understand again, and it's a function of the characters you have.
And I found out the hard way.
Yeah.
Especially at the end of that one.
We like to teach you that way because that's the fun way to learn. Well, it's a fun way to teach.
Yeah, it's not the fun way to learn, but but it is a cool component to the game. I like that, actually.
One thing I would ding the mechanics is they do a lot with special dice. Now, they're not really special. They're D6s and D8s,
yeah.
but they have different faces on them, and they're quite expensive.
Yeah, make you buy another set of dice.
Yeah, and the dice, the official dice are, not the... let's just say there's a high margin in their product presentation of those dice.
Well, and the core set, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't come with enough dice.
The game we played, we had a number of extra dice sets, and we still were short dice every now and then. I think it's a bit of a minor ding, but to me it's a little annoying that you can't use the dice. Now, the way the dice faces work, it really frees you. We didn't look up on any charts for modifiers. They're all right there.
Right.
So what did you give for mechanics?
I gave it a 6. It's slightly above average. I think there's a lot of neat things going on, but because it's so tournament driven and because it's so focused on all these special rules for special units, to me it comes out in the wash where it's just nothing exceptional about it, because that stuff is all fine and good and it's maybe fun and it's very Star Wars. It doesn't play that tactically. When it comes down to it, it's mostly about what the cards can do and what the units can do, and there's not a whole lot of tactical depth to it.
Yeah, and I didn't go too much higher. I gave it a 7.
7.
For a lot of the same reasons. It's a fun game.
Yeah, it is fun.
It is a game.
It is a game.
But it's dominated by heroes, and so you have these superhuman figures that can wipe out full units.
Yeah.
Just like the movie.
That's what they should do.
It's a Star Wars movie.
Normally we call this historical flavor, this category, but this isn't a historical game, so Miles helpfully suggested we call it
Canon flavor.
Canon.
I think it actually captures a lot of the feel of Star Wars.
Yeah.
From the look of the miniature, the sculpting of the miniatures, the Han Solo miniature looks like Han Solo.
Yeah.
Except when I paint it, because it looks like...
Oh, he looks fine.
It looks like Mr. Handy.
Yeah.
But some other ones, the Leia miniature, all of the characters actually show up really well.
Yeah.
And I remember, this will date me, seeing Star Wars in the theater, and the magic from that event. You see that in the miniatures, and I found them a joy to paint. Even the stormtroopers.
Even the stormtroopers. Wow.
And the miniatures, the stats on the card, they seem to make sense.
Leia, sorry, is actually a little bit better, I think, on the table than Han.
Leia's a badass.
She is, and that is the cool thing I like about it. Like Chewbacca does what Chewbacca does. He's going to get in and rip arms off of stormtroopers.
And he ripped off quite a number of stormtrooper arms in our game.
So, and I like that. It really, the kid in me is very excited to see an ATST on the table, stomping around and stormtroopers. And although they can shoot in this game, so that's kind of against canon.
Well, that's true.
Their shooting is not too bad. And
the way Tony and I roll, their shooting was pretty much right on canon.
Well, that's true. But their armor is good too.
Yeah, their armor is quite good. Throw us a bone.
Right.
But I actually, it's a real Star Wars filled game. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the other Fantasy Flight Star Wars games, X-Wing, Armada,
I've played X-Wing before.
They're all very similar. I think they've done a very nice job with the license, kind of staying true to that. And I'm sure that has nothing to do with the army of Disney lawyers, that threaten to come down upon them at any point in time if were they to vary from the contractual agreement. My score for historical flavor, I actually gave it a 9.
You gave it a 9? I was wavering between 8 and 9. I chose 8. I think just because that's high for me. That's good. I don't give out 9s and 10s very easily. So 8 is very, very good. So
I never want to take your glass, then, do I?
No, you don't.
Got it. One thing, though, I think, Keith, we should talk about with Canon flavor is there is a new box set out for the Clone Wars period. I know we all love Episode 1.
Maybe you do.
But they're expanding the universe.
Right.
But there is a downside.
There's a downside. Clone Wars.
Today, there's no Jar Jar Binks figure.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we dodged a bullet.
Come on, Fantasy Flight.
No, don't encourage them. Stop.
Give us Jar Jar.
Category support, and it's a Fantasy Flight Games game. And they own the IP, so they have forums. There's a tournament system that apparently is very, very popular. They're in every store. There's online support. I mean, they have everything for support.
And in addition to what Fantasy Flight has, there's a lot of options that are fan-driven. And I mentioned earlier about card management. There's a site called tabletop.admiral.com where you can do your own force selection. And it has all of the cards. It prints out all the services. You can do your command cards. Everything that we had, you can print out and manage your list. So that if you're building lists or just trying to understand the capabilities of units, I can't imagine a better resource than Tabletop Admiral. So for my terms of support, they really do a superb job. I've never given this score before, but I'm going to give it a 10 on support.
I think I will give it the only 10 I might have ever only given. But it's for support, which is not as big a category.
No, but I think
if I'm going to give a 10 away, it's going to be.
But if you look at how to build a hobby business, and make it thrive,
That's a good
I think
point.
there's a lot of lessons people can learn from Fantasy Flight Games.
That's true.
They charge a very hefty price, but they actually deliver a lot of value for that price, and I think and they do a better job reaching non-gamers.
And that brings us to the next point. Would you pay the cost of this?
I would, and I have.
You have.
Now, if I wasn't a Star Wars fan, I don't know if I would. But I like the genre. Painting Star Wars minis is a lot of fun. It kind of brings me back to the days when I was young, when we had Model Ts out and talkies, and I really enjoy it.
I'm waiting for the Star Wars Rebels characters. They have one out, Sabine. When I'm waiting for more of those, but I think I will.
I think more coming.
Now. Yeah. So
when we talked about getting into the game, let's talk about what it really costs to get in. This is a box set. This is a starter set. It comes with the rules and forces for 2 factions. You get Luke Skywalker, 2 Rebel squads, a Walker for the Rebels. You get some bikes, 2 Stormtrooper squads, and Darth Vader himself for the Imperials. And this retails list price for $99. I've seen it as $50 on sale. That's usually about a year after one of these have just come out.
Okay.
To field a tournament level game, a force of about 800 points, you probably need to supplant this for one side with 3 to 4 box sets, because you can buy stormtroopers, you can buy other types of troopers, and each of those boxes run about $20 a pop for 6 to 7 miniatures.
Okay.
So that's where the price really comes in. So I think you're looking at $150 to $220 to get into with a well kitted out kind of force.
Yeah, it's a little salty for me. I'm used to historical miniatures.
One thing we haven't talked about is scale. And the scale of these figures are 32 millimeter. Heroic scale. There's a funny story because Fantasy Flight Games also has a tabletop game that's Star Wars themed called Imperial Assault.
Which came out before this.
Which came out before this and was much more kind of a dungeon crawly type game.
Used tile
floors, beautifully presented.
Yeah.
With 28 millimeter scale figures.
Very nice figures.
Very nice figures. Stormtroopers, Darth Vader,
All the Rebels characters.
All the Rebels characters. And almost by design, they decided to come out with a slightly different scale for this game. I think it's time for our final scores. Keith, what did you rate it?
I got a 69.
69. I think I got a little higher than that. I came out at an 81.
That's a high score.
A bit of a fanboy.
Yeah.
But I think we both said this is a fun game. I think we would both play it again.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Excellent. One thing I'd like to remind everybody is we are doing a giveaway of this very starter set. All you need to do is go over to the Endor video, not this video, but the Endor video, and leave a comment. One, complimenting me. Secondly, suggesting what you'd like to see, what characters you'd like to see Fantasy Flight bring out in future releases for the game system.
May the Force be with you, always.
For the Swartz.
The Schwartz.